Welcome to the Greek Carnivore podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Greek Carnivore podcast. I'm Alexandros, and today it's a great pleasure to have today with us Dr. Ankur Verma from India, and from all the places to find a carnivore doctor. I guess India would be the least, the last choice if I had to guess. So, welcome, Ankur, and thank you for accepting the invitation.
Thank you so much for having me, Alexandros. It's a pleasure to be here and have this conversation with you. And you said it right. I mean, India is one of the places where you wouldn't actually expect a carnivore out of. But just this myth that a lot of Indians were meant to be vegetarians. I mean, the most of the population right now is vegetarian. But then if you look at our descendant, we as a descendant, our ancestors were actually in the Indus Valley civilization, the Harappa civilization, if you remember, those the ancient civilizations, and they've done DNA testing. So most of the South Asians are actually descendants from the Indus Valley civilizations, which includes us. And they checked out the lipid profiles of all the utensils and all the cooking pots they had at that time, and they were all lined with beef and meat fats. So, our ancestors were actually full on carnivores, if I can say so. If not full on, they were definitely animal based, way more animal based than what Indians would like to believe or portray that, we are actually a vegetarian population. That's not right.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, because we think, Hinduism and, it goes together, right? But what do you know what happened? Like, was there some revolution or something on the or religious?
I can't be sure. Yeah, I mean, I still have to go into the historical facts, but then I remember. I mean, probably even before the British, invaded us, we were quite a large meat-based population, and once those guys came in, obviously they wanted the meat for themselves. And I mean, you're from Greece and all, and in those areas earlier used to have gladiators, and they would be given peasant food, which were basically grains and cereals. So I guess when the Britishers also came, they took all the meats for themselves and left the cereals and the grains for the Indians. That's what I've read about a little bit, but I'm definitely going to look into it deeper
Mhm,
and
mhm.
see when did this big time vegetarianism started off in India.
Okay, yeah, it's an interesting, but I guess this makes sense, right? The colonialism.
Yeah.
Um, could you maybe, for people that might not be familiar with you and your background, if you can just introduce yourself, what do you do, what you are, you're an emergency doctor, right? So if you can
Yeah.
talk a bit about
Yeah, so
that.
I'm an emergency medicine specialist, and I've been practicing emergency medicine for about 18 to 20 years. And I've been saving a lot of lives. I mean, I teach my residents how to save a lot of lives. And then, but over the years, I've noticed that the population to be saved is just, increasing and increasing and increasing. Not because the population is increasing, but just the sick population is increasing. So there's obviously something that's metabolically wrong in this country. And about 3 years back, so I've been working out for a very long time, and I always thought I was fit. Well, 3 years back, I found my triglycerides to be 600, and my triglyceride to HDL ratio was about 16, which, if you go by the metabolically healthy standards, is sort of fatal. I'm still
Yeah,
lucky
yeah.
to be alive, right? And it's not that I was a vegetarian or that I was having only junk food. I would like to believe I was a born carnivore. I had the instincts, as my family tells me. When I was about 2 years old, I would go to the kitchen and cluck around like a chicken with salivating for meat. I'll go and want some fish and ask for fish. And then I remember, as I grew up, whenever I used to go to my grandparents' place, if there's a party going on, there would be one full chicken made for the family and one full chicken made for me, just for me.
Ah,
So
nice.
I always loved my meats, but then as we were growing up, industrialization, westernization, a lot of junk food came in, Coca-Cola came in, and I know we were always starstruck by the Western influences. I'm not saying that everybody was really fit. There was still sicknesses and illnesses and non-communicable diseases at that time, but it just obviously boomed. The vegetable oils, the refined oils came in, obviously, yeah, and the junk food happened, and yeah, I was still having my meats. I would always have at least one meal of meat every day, but that was always and always carbohydrate loaded. I would have it with rice, with the rotis or breads, but that would always be there. Even my eggs would always have bread along with it. So I figured my nutrition knowledge was absolutely zero when I found out my triglycerides were so high, because as doctors we were never trained in nutrition. We only sold the myths that we were sold before we became doctors, but after we became doctors we just had the authority to tell people, have a balanced diet, have your fibers, have your fruits and vegetables, because that's what we had heard, and we always thought that was the right way, but it wasn't. And it's not very difficult to understand that animal proteins is what we need, animal fats is what we need. I mean, we were taught about gluconeogenesis and how our liver makes sugar for the body by itself during our medical school, but nobody taught us this, in a practical form, that you don't need exogenous carbohydrates because your body is making it itself. And it's not that I turned carnivore immediately. I was about 86 kilos when I got the shock, and obviously the first thing I did was cut off all my sugars and junk food. Thankfully, I realized that I was not addicted because I had no symptoms of withdrawal. It took me just a second to stop all junk food. So we removed everything from my house, no junk food at all. Stopped keeping that. I cut down on my carbohydrate intake. I started doing calorie counting. I was not doing calorie in, calorie out. No, I was working out. I was just making sure that my calorie intake is a little on the lower side, because when I did the maths before starting to cut down on my calories, I figured I was having about 4 to 5 thousand calories a day easily, because we love our desserts. So our meats with the rice, and then follow that up with nice rasmalais or rasgullas, if you've heard of them, and ice creams. Yeah, so the Indian sweets are really, really sugar loaded. Uh, Easily 4 to 5 thousand calories, and then I cut it down to about 2,000 calories. So I was taking note of my carbohydrate intake, which was basically rice. I cut off all the breads, and then slowly, about a year back, so I cut down on 21 kilos in about 9 months, and it was mainly, but I still felt that there was some inflammation, and something was not right. And then somebody sent me a reel of Paul Saladino doing the carnivore, and then just went down the rabbit hole. Saladino led to Chafee, Robert Kill, Sean Baker, uh, everybody else. Sean O'Mara, Ken Berry. Oh, and then I started reading up more. I learned about metabolic health from this book called Metabolical. I don't know if you've heard of this. It's by Professor Robert Lustig. He's a pediatric endocrinologist. So I understood about metabolic syndromes, sugars, and all of that. I went through all the research and papers that all of these doctors were talking about, animal proteins and carbohydrates and vegetarianism, veganism, whatever, anti-nutrients, nutrients. And it's not that I just followed anybody blindly. I did my own research. I went through the papers people were talking about. Like offline, you were asking me about the 30% diabetics, right? And I told you I'm going to share that paper with you. That's always a good way to actually validate and understand what others are talking about, and not just follow blindly. And that's what I teach my residents also when I teach them emergency medicine, that always ask why, always ask that question, and then that's when you learn more. So I
Yeah.
went through all that research. I'm a doctor. I don't think I needed to have like a formal nutritional training. I mean, I know what's going to happen if I go to a dietetic school. Even in India, it's going to be the same thing. A well balanced diet, and your carbohydrate intake should be this much, and your fiber intake should be this much, and all of that. But yeah, I mean, as a trained emergency medicine specialist, I know how to read papers. I've done a lot of research. I've published a lot of papers in emergency medicine. Uh, so I know what I'm reading, and I can understand that and make my own inferences. And I've been doing it myself. So in the past 1 year, it's been a year, more than a year now since I turned carnivore, and I'm loving it. I mean, my family's also turned carnivore. My son is a carnivore. He has to have a little bit of carbs because of his school. They don't allow meats in the school, so but the rest of the times he's having only his meats. My wife is a carnivore. She cooks. She gets food cooked also. And we're just loving it. Her hypothyroid is reversed. All my heartburn has just disappeared. A lot of joint aches and pains. I don't get sore after my workouts anymore, which was something which I noticed. Yeah, so that's pretty much what my journey's been.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's pretty interesting that you were already eating this meat, right? From from a young age, and so you're brought up with meat at home, and so I guess that's maybe how you got a bit more, eased easier. It got easier to transition to the carnivore. But I had a question because if I understood correctly, before the carnivore, you were doing something like a keto with low carb
Yeah,
keto or
yeah,
a low calorie restrictive
yeah.
keto. Was it on purpose, or how did this happen?
So yeah, so that started in July 2021, right? When I cut off my sugars and my junk food. I still needed some carbs because obviously I did not know about carnivore at that time. I did go keto, but and so I hadn't understood the whole nutrition science at that time. I just started off. So I started doing calorie counting, and you have all of these apps, right? So I put in
Hmm.
an app, right? So this is my weight and this is my target weight and all of that, and then it'll give me a calculation of the amount of calories I need to eat. I wasn't going by their carbohydrate measurement that they'd given, like maybe like you need 500 calories of carbs a day types. No, I tried to limit it as much as possible and up my proteins and fats. You know, obviously refined oils we had stopped like a long time back, even before I understood the science behind all of that. So yeah, we use only ghee or butter or virgin coconut oil to cook. So I did go into the keto space, but that was for about a year and a half. I was still not feeling. I was obviously better than what I was before that. If you see my before and after pictures, you'll understand.
It's
But
crazy.
right now, yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
But now, when I see my pictures, even after when I lost 21 kgs, when I look at my pictures, I'm much leaner now. I feel fitter now. I can still see a little bit of inflammation on my face and on my body when I look at those pictures just from a year back, and I can understand the difference that this has made. So yeah,
So those pictures I saw on your Instagram was after or before you started carnivore. So
before I started keto,
before you started keto, okay, because it's
yeah,
like a
yeah,
huge. It's like
yeah,
it's like two different people, right?
yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Could be your cousin or somebody else. It's crazy, and I invite everybody to go and see your Instagram and social. Do you have any other social networks that
I'm on
you're
Facebook,
on?
but I don't use that too much. For the public, it's my Instagram, and yeah, that's what. And I put
Yeah,
up my
so
podcast on
guys,
Spotify.
go and check it out. um,
Another thing which I noticed at that time, so you have these weighing scales which use bioimpedance, right? And they give you your metabolic age. So in 2021, I was 38 years old, and my metabolic, and it gives you your metabolic age also. It's just an estimate, obviously.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
I've done this
but it
too.
was yeah, but it was 45 when I
Hmm.
was 38 years old. But the metabolic age of my body was 45, and now I'm 41. My body's metabolic age is 37.
Wow.
So I've actually reversed 8 years of my metabolic age. I mean, yeah,
For
give
me,
or
it
take
was
a couple of
for
years, I
me. I
guess.
did it at I was 27, and the first time I measured myself, it said 28 years. Oh no, I'm sorry, 30. It
All
said
right.
that I was 30 years old. So I was like, okay. And then when I went carnivore, I checked again myself, and it was saying 13 years old. I was like, okay, I
That's
really,
drastic.
that was
Yeah,
amazing. I felt like I was a teenager again, but
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, that was a great change. Yeah. What can you tell us about your experience with the carnivore diet, and how has it influenced your approach to emergency medicine, or and especially in India with the we talked a bit about the Hinduism and the religion. How those two can work together?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. Because I've been thinking about it, and I put up an episode on my podcast too, where I was linking metabolic health and emergency medicine, and obviously your nutrition and carnivore diet goes along with that, right? Uh, in my department, most of the patients who come in have metabolic syndromes. Either they had come in with the complications of metabolic syndromes like a heart attack or a stroke, or an artery that's burst in your brain that's called a hemorrhage because of high blood pressures, diabetic complications, or they come in with complications of the medications that the patients might be on. I remember I saw a kidney disease patient. He was on 17 medications, 17, and he was still getting dialyzed. And I asked him, "What do you eat?" He's like, "I'm a pure vegetarian. I eat only healthy food." I'm like, "Yeah, I can see that. What kind of a life are you leading?" He was not on any junk food. He was not on any. He never took alcohol or smoked, but he was a diabetic. He was a hypertensive patient because he's not getting any of his nutrition and he's carbohydrate loaded. So I've started to make that link regarding the standard Indian diet, which is absolutely carbohydrate loaded. If anybody has any opposition to that, you can discuss it with me. I've had the standard Indian diet for many many years. I know, you ask any Indian, they can't live without their rice or their rotis, and that's full of carbohydrates, and it's all going to go down as sugars into your body. So yeah, now what I've started doing is, so for the past 7 or 8 months, we were asking all our patients what are they eating, and the 99% would say vegetarian, vegetarian, vegetarian. So we thought we're going to do a research on that, and we cleared the ethics committee a couple of months back, and we formally started to jot down all the patients who were coming in with any comorbid conditions, known comorbid conditions. We're not testing them. They already have to have a prescription which says they're diabetic, hypothyroidism, cancers, hypertension, any heart disease, strokes, or they come in with a new heart attack or a new stroke. They did not know they had some issues earlier, but they come in with a stroke. And we're asking them what they eat, what kind of a diet are they on, is it carbohydrate loaded or not. We're looking into the Nova processed groups, 1 to 4, asking them what oils they use, any drug habits, any alcohol, exercise, all of that. So it's quite comprehensive. It's not just like the standard food frequency questionnaire. It's about 35 questions, and we've collected about 500 patients. And out of 500 patients, 54% are diabetic, 66% have hypertension, about 48% are vegetarians, 40% are omnivores. But those, again, if people are omnivores, over vegetarians, or pescatarians, most of them are eating their meats or eggs or fish probably once a month, and a little more regularly probably once a week. But they're all associated with or eaten along with carbohydrates, with the rice or the rotis, or maybe on pizzas or something like that. And we just want to show a mirror to the population as to what's going wrong with them. There are a lot of research coming out regarding how sick India is, and it's not just because of the junk food. You have to see that there are a lot of elderly patients coming in. Elderly patients usually don't eat a lot of junk food, right? But they're on the standard Indian diet, and they're mostly vegetarians, and at least in my area, right? And and they're carbohydrate loaded. And if you look around anywhere, even you go to South India, their breakfast is all carbs, their lunch is all carbs, their dinner is all carbs. You have dosas and idlis and vadas and all of that. You go up north, they have something that we call chole bhature and pav bhaji and all that. So that's like bread and potatoes and flour, wheat flour and all of that. and it's full of carbohydrates. Then they have chickpeas, again carbohydrates. So that's all of that. You go to Western India, they have a lot of carbohydrate loaded dishes. So yeah, emergency medicine, metabolic syndromes, carnivore diet. I believe they all go hand in hand, and that's what I've tried to tell people. It'll be easier for me to save your life if you don't come into the emergency department. Right? If you reverse your metabolic syndromes, you get off all your medications by following the right nutrition path. You won't need to come into the emergency department. You won't need your life to be saved. It'll be so much easier for you. It'll be so much easier for us. We'll save a lot of resources. Uh, Obviously, if you have accidents or traumas, we're all there. And I was thinking, there's so many specialities which have come up only because people are getting sicker. You have oncology, you have medical oncology, you have radiation oncology, you have surgical oncology, you have probably robotics coming in everywhere. You've got the highest standards of PET CTs and radiation therapies and all of that because people are getting sicker. They're not getting better, right? There's so many, you have pediatric endocrinologists, you have fetal medicine, and a lot of things. Why? Because people, it's just going downhill. It's not going
Yeah.
uphill. People are not getting better, so you're just coming out with more specialities, more research, but nothing's happening. I mean, obviously there'll
And
be some exceptions. People are putting in a lot
yeah,
of effort, but yeah, the medical fraternity also needs to understand that a nutrition is really important. It's because of that there are so many metabolic syndromes. Even cancer is a metabolic syndrome. It's metabolic dysfunction, mitochondrial dysfunction. And so yeah, this is how it's all panning out right now. So we're trying our best. Even my department, where we're talking to patients who are coming in with these syndromes, we're trying to counsel them regarding their diet. Some of them are like, yeah, okay, fine, this makes sense, so why don't I do this and all. But it's very difficult to follow them, so we're trying to influence other doctors also, because you have more touch points with patients. The more doctors understand this, the more doctors who try it, it'll be easier to spread to more people.
that's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. I guess you already have some successes, right, at your clinic, and I think I've heard you say at some podcast that colleagues of yours they see
Yeah,
you, they see the differences that people have changing the diet, and ultimately that's what we're looking for, right? Results. And that's something that
yeah,
it's definitely lacking, I think, in the medical community. I'm a physical therapist, physiotherapist, so I see every day. People. It's mostly chronic diseases.
yeah,
So when they come to the clinic, they have some pain related to whatever they have, and they there are so many of them that just take. You said pills, like they take so many pills and nothing goes, nothing, nothing improves. And somehow, they're coming to the physio with all this pain and inflammation on their body. And, one day it will be the shoulder, the other day it will be on the back. And what's happening with me? What should I do? And so it's very hard to kind of, in the medical field to tell them, well, just eat meat, like
yeah,
that's a very, very hard thing. But at the same time, like when you show the results that people have, like the pictures we're talking about, your pictures, and I mean the transformations of people that they have
yeah,
doing this diet, because we could be talking all along about, hey, that's perfect, that's so nice, all this research that show that it's such a great diet, and guys, do it. But if there's no result at the end, like, why would you ever do it? But at the same time, like, we're listening, you're talking about oncologists and cancer treatment. We have a whole uh, you know a whole disease that we basically say to people, there's no cure. Well, there you go, let's try our best and take this pill, because it might work, it might not work, so let's try. And there's no hope, right? But we kind of hold
mm,
on to that because it's the establishment, is what the some medical figure or authority that tells us that that is it. So I guess my question would be to you: how do you, so when you have a patient that you see that, okay, he might need some change in the diet, how do you go about it with talking to them about it? Uh, do you have the time to, or how does it go?
Yeah, that's an amazing question because I'm in a field where we don't have much time. We don't get too much of time to save their lives. We don't get too much of time to have a heart-to-heart discussion regarding nutrition. But then we do plant a seed. We need to see if somebody gets interested in it or not, right? So I mean, definitely we were asking them what do they eat, and most of them say that we eat all these vegetables and all. I'm like, do you eat fish or chicken or meat? And they're like, no. And I'm like, yeah, you should. And most of them are like, but that's opposite to what doctors say. I'm like, exactly. If you're interested in what I'm saying, I'll talk further. And see, so these are these people who get interested. Why? Because they have the instinct to eat meats, but they don't, because they've heard wrong. And those are the ones who actually start to question me, start to ask more questions, and try and understand. When I start talking, I do a small quick chart about how carbs increase your insulin spikes and all of that, and this is how it's affecting your body. Just a quick discussion. And this is what the animal proteins are about. And they're like, and if some, there are people who counter, like, what about pea protein and soybean and all that? I don't go into the anti-nutrient part. I just tell them, you need bioavailable and biodigestible essential amino acids. None of your dietitians are going to tell you about essential amino acids because they don't know, right? They just talk about the macros as a whole, proteins, but they don't talk about essential amino acids. And then they understand, yes, so this doctor's probably knows what he's talking about. And I tell him, you get your doctor to me. We can have a debate in front of you regarding nutrition if you want. And then they understand. But the thing is, their time in the emergency is also very short lived. They need to be moved out somewhere. So some of them do get in touch with us. They get back to us. My team's sharing my podcast links with the patients who get interested, or my Instagram handle who get interested, so they can follow and get more information. And if they want, they can get in touch with me. So I think that's one of the boons. Sorry, the pros of social media. Where if I don't have the time to talk to them, they can always come and listen to me on on the podcast
Yeah,
or my reels on Instagram. So yeah, so we're doing that also. Yeah.
yeah, that's great. That's great. And do you recommend that people go from a vegetarian straight to a carnivore, or how do you go about it?
So uh, it's going to be difficult first to go. I mean, it's almost impossible to go from vegetarian to carnivore straight up unless and until you're probably 220% motivated and you've had meats in the past, right? Because there's a lot of the vegetarian population in India have never even touched meat. Forget about smelling or tasting it, right? So the first thing I tell them is, okay, fine, if not meats, at least cut off the carbohydrates that you're having. And you should know what food items are for them. It's like, for them, carbohydrate is adding that sugar in their tea. you know they don't realize it's the biscuit that they're having. They don't realize it's the rice that they're having, the rotis that they're having, the lentils that they're having are all carbohydrates. The fruits that they're having are all 40-50 grams of sugars in every fruit. And they're all hybridized. In today's date, there is no non-hybridized fruit, right? If not the fruit, at least. And even if the fruit is grown organically, the seed is not. So yeah, so those are the things that I start off with. And then most of them are comfortable doing eggs, so I ask them to start off with eggs at least, and do like clear soups. Like a chicken clear soup where you don't have any chicken pieces. It's basically the broth, so they get a flavor, they get a sense of the taste of what the chicken's going to taste like, and then take it from there, slowly. But at least, I mean, once they start off, once they understand that it makes a difference, then it's just about a little bit of hand holding and just guiding them. And then I mean, carnivore is not that difficult to do. Once they start to see changes, they understand how their body is reacting. And most of them can just tailor make it themselves. This is what suits me, this is what doesn't suit me. And that's how I try to counsel them to convert from a vegetarian to a carnivore. But yeah, I mean, I definitely tell them to stop being a vegetarian.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's like a health hazard for me.
Yeah, I mean, there is also this study, right? That the famous study of 84% that just go back to eating meat after being vegetarian.
Yeah, yeah,
So that's like, and not for reasons that it just tastes good, right? They have
yeah.
uh, all
Health
sorts
reasons
of
there.
health reasons, yeah, deficiencies,
Yeah,
um, and that's definitely something that we are not taught at all, like in the medical field, at least for in my studies, we never learned that. Hey, you know what? The food could be really causing you some real pain and some real trouble in your health. And I even had a nutrition class which was optional. I wanted to try it. I mean, to see what are they gonna say there, and it was funny because at that time I was 1 year into the carnivore diet, feeling the best ever, and I have this teacher telling me that you should eat 60% carbs and then 40% of the rest, and your brain, all this, your brain needs carbs to function. If you don't have any sugar, your brain doesn't function. So like, okay, should I be dead now or what? Like, that's
yeah,
or there's no, or you're completely wrong, or you are wrong, or I'm dead, because there's nothing in between, right? Because at this time I
yeah,
was really, really, very um, strict in the carnivore diet. I wasn't even eating anything outside of it. Now a bit here and there sometimes, but and I was like, well, it's it's impossible. So, and then it's also very very hard to also for people to understand that, hey, yeah, you might eat something and have a pain, um, especially for me, like as a physiotherapist. Inflammation leads to pain. So where it goes to the muscles, it goes to the joints, it goes to the organs, and it it can be, you can have all sorts of problems like tendonitis, or some back pain, chronic back pain, all the names of that that you see every day, right? And they get to have operations because of it, and they get to, because there's no cure other than
yeah,
just take the pill, take the anti-inflammatory that just makes you feel good for a while, and then when you tell them, yeah, look, it might be something in your diet, and it's really hard for them to understand. And I guess that's also a reason why I also do these podcasts, and I try to share as much as possible, that so I can share the experience, and we can go a bit deeper into the knowledge and to the experiences of everybody, just healing from all sorts of problems just by taking care of their diet, which is crazy. But once you do it, it makes so much sense. So
yeah.
uh, yeah. I mean, and what I was looking at, I had some statistics that I was looking at about the countries that were the most eat meters and the least eat meters, and the life expectancy. And so I was comparing with Switzerland as well, because Switzerland it's an interesting country, because so when you see uh, Switzerland is in the fourth place of life expectancy at 84 years old, and we
Nice.
have at first is Hong Kong at 86. Right, so Hong Kong though has something like 137 kilos per capita per year.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
but what's interesting that I found is that Switzerland has half of it. It's about 70 kilos, which is still a good amount, right?
It's still a
Comparing,
lot.
it's still a lot.
Still
Um,
much higher than India.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I guess the changes are more in the extremes, I guess, right? Like when you get a bit of meat, and obviously there are other factors, right? Like the quality of of life, the quality of food as well, right? Like we in Switzerland, they are very very fond of the quality bio stuff, so that definitely plays a role as well. Like even your carbs could be better carbs. So
Yeah.
yeah, like how do you? I guess the question would be how do you see those differences between countries and a country like India that is like
Yeah.
3 point how much is it 3.5 kilos.
3.5 kilos per kg per person. 3.5 kgs per person per year. Yeah. So what I was also thinking was Switzerland is so much cleaner, I think, as compared to Hong Kong. The environment also is a big factor. You've got, if I'm not wrong, I don't know the numbers, but I'm pretty sure Switzerland has cleaner air than Hong Kong. So that could be one of the factors also, as to why your life expectancy is high.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Ours is abysmal, right? So we've got some of the most polluted cities in the world. We've got the least amount of meat intake in the world. So that's only going to be equivalent to one of the lowest life expectancies, which is just about 66, 67 years. So yeah, I think all of these factors should be taken into consideration. I'm still surprised that it's 67. It should be lower.
Yeah.
Because people are, I mean, I'm seeing so many patients, so I'm quite skeptical of the number of 67.
Hmm. Interesting. It's interesting.
And it's not that we're seeing this, a lot of people have been asking me this question regarding was it after the vaccinations and stuff. No, it wasn't. It's been going on for many years. It's just that since we got more fit, we got more metabolically savvy, if I can say so. Now we're actually seeing it in the patients, right? Earlier it was just like, okay, fine, I'm a doctor, I'm practicing my emergency medicine, patients are coming in, patients are going, but we couldn't relate at that time because that's not how we were trained, right? Patients come in, you save their lives, you give them medications, you put them on that, and then they go and they probably die later. We don't know, because obviously we didn't cure them of their root cause, right? They were still eating the same foods and that they were eating before they came to the emergency department, right? Another point I just wanted to make was regarding foods. I mean, you take medications. Most of the doctors will tell you most of the medications is going to cause you a lot of harm in your stomach. Is going to cause a lot of gastritis, right? So that
Hmm.
just means that they're pro-inflammatory. You need to have some food and then take the medicine. You know, that's how harmful these medications can be. You know. Secondly, there's so many tests, so many blood tests that you need to do when you're in a fasting state and not after a meal. Why? People, I mean, I never questioned why. Now I question why. It's pretty obvious. It's the food that's going to alter everything inside your body, right? It's going to alter all your labs. It's going to alter, everything down to the mitochondria, right? So if I have carbs before my blood sugar test, it's going to spike up to probably 200 and 300. If I have proteins and then get my blood sugar done, it'll probably be at 80, 85, 90. That's the magic of food. That's the magic of nutrition. As a doctor, we never thought about it like that. But
Yeah.
now if people, and I mean, thanks to you and everybody else who's doing podcasts and social media and everything, all of these things are getting more into the mainstream, and it's really important. That's how important food is for you. And you can't have medications without your food. You shouldn't do tests when you've taken food. Means the food is what is the most important part for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the people that are really skeptical about the carnivore, I find them very interesting because, um, they don't necessarily disagree about the sugar part and all the carb loading that we're experiencing, but they say eat everything in moderation. Like uh, eat a bit of everything, which is almost impossible to do. Like maybe some
Yeah.
people have a really like I know for a fact for me, I'm the type of people that you put something on the side. If I just open, if I just take a little bit of something that I shouldn't, some cake, let's say, I know that this cake is gonna, I'm gonna have to finish this thing because my body is just like reacting.
Asking.
Is asking for it. It's like a drug. So and those people that say those things like, yeah, eat a bit of everything. The Mediterranean. Well, we're talking about the Mediterranean food diet. It's it's nonsense because for some people they'd say it could work because they can be very I know people that can just open a bar of chocolate and just eat a really small piece and then leave it for the next week. But there are people that just you eat, you open you open the thing, you have to finish it. You can't control, right? So there's no just a bit. There's no a bit of everything. Plus, it doesn't tell us about the reactions that we will have if we eat certain foods, right? How would you know if something makes you feel bad or makes you, makes gives you a reaction if you eat a bit of everything? How would you know? And then, you wake up the next morning, you're like, oh, I feel a bit tired. Oh, maybe it's because whatever, the weather, and you never question your diet. You never question what you eat because how
That's
could
true.
you?
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, it's one of my pet peeves, as to this term called moderation. My moderation would be different from yours, would be different from somebody else's, would be different from a fourth person. And moderate what? You want to moderate your carbs, you want to moderate your proteins, your essential amino acids, your essential fatty acids, your micronutrients. What do you want to moderate and how much? It doesn't make sense. It's like saying, oh, you can smoke, but smoke in moderation. Even one cigarette is harmful for you. Even 20 cigarettes are harmful for you. And and how are you going to define moderation for everybody? Probably, if I smoke 3 cigarettes, I should be fine. You smoke 5 cigarettes, that should be fine for you. Somebody smokes one pack a day, and that should be good for them, or that should be worse. Or would that person get cancer first, or would I get cancer first just because I smoke one cigarette a day? Would my chances of getting cancer early be reduced as compared to somebody who's having 20 packs? I mean, it's still poison, right? Uh,
Yeah,
so yeah, and we as doctors used to always tell this to our patients: have everything in moderation, But nobody ever asked us what do you mean by moderation, Thank
yeah,
God they didn't ask, because I wouldn't have been able to answer it, you know. What did I mean by moderation? How much of chicken should you eat in a day? How much of eggs? I remember I saw a reel where a nutritionist was talking, and a friend of mine sent me this reel, and she was like, she was like, animal proteins turn into ash in your body, and it's all acidic ash. You don't need that, which didn't make any sense to me. I don't know where she got that from. And so you should have 2 servings of fruits every day and 5 servings of vegetables. Where does that come in from? Is that the same for everybody? Everybody is different, right? Even if the two of us are carnivores, we're not going to eat the same amount of meats, our proteins and fats every day. Yours is going to be different, mine is going to be different,
yeah,
depending on our body's needs, right? So yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
definitely.
it's quite wild to talk about moderation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that was definitely why I started the carnivore diet because I thought, okay, that's not a religion. That's not something like that people are hanging on some idea that, hey, this is very good for you, for the planet, and for you mix everything in there, right? Like, don't hurt the animals. We don't hurt, the environment. Cows are farting so far, so that's why they make the planet so so dirty and whatever. So, and I was hearing the arguments on the carnivore side, and I was like, okay, so you can eat whatever you want from this menu of the carnivore diet, how much you want, when you want, and when you find yourself at a balance, then you can start adding things. And I was like, oh, that's interesting for somebody that they are so. It sounds so strict. Like, why would you go so strict? Uh, but the idea that you had this room of, okay, I could also add things along the way, and maybe I come to a conclusion that I would eat a bit more things along the way, but at the same time, I would know that, hey, I don't know, when I eat broccoli, I feel sick. So I know now that, well, the broccoli is not for me. So I take this out, or cheese. Maybe cheese is not for me. Maybe certain type of cheese, or whatever that is, whatever this food is. And I thought I thought that this was very very interesting, approach to a diet, because it's a much more personal approach. Like, yeah, we are different, and there are some guidelines, there are some theories, let's call them that, um, and you can start, and then wherever it leads you, right? And that's probably the best, versus
Absolutely.
the maniac consistency of oh, meat is bad, and vegetarianism. I mean, it's probably not the same type of vegetarians that are in India, that are in the West, but there are some that are maybe very, that you see probably in the TV, that don't eat the meat, it's so bad, you're killing an animal. And I mean, all these ethical um, arguments, which could make sense, but at the same time, what does it have to do with my health? Like, you don't talk about what does it do to me. And yeah, so it's a very very interesting. And how what was the changes that you saw when you did the carnivore versus the keto? What was the reason you were doing it? Did you have any issues, any health issues? Of course, you said that the weight, but was there anything else?
Yeah. Yeah, that was my weight. My triglycerides were really high, right? 600. My TG2 HDL ratio was 16. Now it's 1.6. It was 16 at that time. And I used to have a lot of heartburn. I remember I used to pop in antacids every night, and I thought it was with age. I actually thought it was normal for anybody to pop in antacids in the night. I used to get a lot of GRD, a lot of heartburn, a lot of gastritis. I even had esophagitis. And like I mentioned, I was inflamed, and that I realized once I lost the weight, right? But those were some of the issues, and I thought, triglycerides such high, and my blood pressure also shot up. Yeah, so I was put on antihypertensives also for 6 months, and I stopped it myself because once I cut off my sugars, so that was a really important part. When I cut off all my carbs, my blood pressure regularized, and I stopped it, and then I did my research into statins, and I stopped that after 6 months. But yeah, I got much leaner. I put on more lean muscle once I went carnivore. My libido went up. My heartburn's absolutely stopped. Unless if I have too much of spicy food, that's gonna burn you anyways. So I think that's about it. And fitter, more energy, more stamina. Uh, I definitely feel I look much better than I used to about 3 years back. Uh, all my heartburn's gone. I haven't popped in any antacids in the past 2 years at least, unless, like I said, if I have too much spicy food. Uh, uh, what else? Yeah,
Any
no soreness after my
mental
workouts.
any mental health
Mental health,
improvements?
yeah, perfect. Yeah. So, I mean, I've been telling people, I work out a lot, so physical health for sure, metabolic health, and if you have these two absolutely sorted, your mental health is going to be really, really good. I'm actually in a very different space. I'm living the life I really want to. I do what I like. Uh, I don't get any depressive thoughts, and I'm much more satisfied with the way I am right now. If I look back 3 or 4 years back, and you had COVID also that time, maybe rewind to another 2 years, probably 2018, 19. I don't know what was happening. I don't know where I was supposed to go. I have more clarity now. Uh, I don't think I ever had brain fog like a lot of people, because I was never a vegan or a vegetarian, right? So I used to get in my meat content every day, so at least I think that was protective for for me from getting too much into a mentally unstable, or I won't say mentally unstable, any mental illnesses, or any mental screw ups.
Mhm.
uh, I think the meats that I used to eat was actually protective, and once I cut off everything else, it's just become productive.
Yeah, so even though you had this meat, like you even saw this change, even in the energy and the mental clarity and all that, like you even yeah, that's something that I also experienced a lot. And I had since a kid I was diagnosed with migraines. I had migraines, and so I could never find the reason why. And we were going from doctor to doctor to all sorts of tests and electrodes on my head. Um, and then I just gave up, and it kind of got better with time, because I guess, I don't know, I got used to it at some point. So it's like, well, that's my new normal. So I wasn't even thinking about it. And then 10 years before I started the carnivore, I also got some chronic fatigue, and that was really, you know, it was going really gradually with energy. And so, um, and then same thing. I was going for 10 years to doctors to, do all this, so all the tests, allergy tests. I even slept on a lab. They put again some electrodes in my head. I slept on a bed. At a hospital bed to see what are the waves in my head. Is it in my head? Is it
Yeah.
what is happening? So, and nothing. They couldn't say, well, everything's good. All your blood tests are good. No thyroid problems. Okay, nothing. And then I do this carnivore thing, and in 6 weeks I'm like flying. It's like, what is happening? What is happening? And I definitely saw things that I had that I didn't know I had, like some mental fog that you said. I couldn't understand when people were saying, yeah, this mental fog thing, but yeah, I was walking with a cloud in my head all the time, right? So it was a very, like, I that's what I say to people is, like, if you haven't tried it, um, just try it for, I don't know, a month. Try it for a month and see how you feel,
Yeah.
and then you can have a you know an opinion about it, because you can't have any opinion with looking at researches. And at least you could say anything uh, with some research. Hey, this research shows that meat causes cancer. Well, and then the other guy says, well, no, meat is the best. Well, who do you believe? Right? So it's very hard for people, and obviously there are so many forces that are pushing some narratives. And yeah, and mostly in the medical field, like, we don't question, like, you don't have even the time to question it, I guess. I don't know
Yeah.
if it was the same when you were studying, because for me, I remember they were just giving us some facts. Well, that's it. And then you don't have the time to go into it and look at it and really research the information that they give you. You just take it as is. Like, well, uh, you have to eat 60% carbs. Well, now you're tested about it for it. And if you put it wrong, well, you failed the class. That's all you care about, right? To pass the class and learn whatever they tell you. But yeah, did you have any similar, uh, I guess, experience with your medical studies, or did you feel like there were some things that were not right, or did it come later where you realized that, okay, this is maybe something that I was taught this whole time, that I was wrong? Or when
Yeah,
did it happen, when you started realizing it?
absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, medical school was all about becoming a doctor. You know, whatever they taught us, we learned. However, they taught us, so we learned it. And then we started to put that into our own practice once we graduated, right? And one of those things was prescribing statins for high cholesterol, right? We were always told that having a high cholesterol is bad for us, bad for your patients, and statins is the way to go. And in the last years, once I did all my research, I understood what a big fat lie that was. Pun intended. all of that research that Mr. Keyes did, and the sugar industry did by paying off the Harvard scientists to vilify saturated fats and cholesterol for cardiovascular disease, when all the research at that time showed it was the sugar and the carbohydrate intake, which was causing so much of inflammation and oxidative stress, which was actually leading to the cardiovascular disorders. And it was wrong of them to advocate that. It was wrong of the doctors at that time to to give importance to that, and start patients on statins. I was listening to Dr. Asim Malhotra. He's from the UK, and he's done a lot of research into this. And statins only increase your lifespan by 4 days, and obviously causes a lot of side effects. But then, the major side effect, that it lowers your cholesterol, it lowers your LDL, which is actually what you require. All the studies have actually shown an inverse relation. The higher the LDL cholesterol, the lower has been the mortality, the lower has been the stroke cases, the lower are the cardiovascular diseases. It was always, I would say, it was always the HDL. I mean, people always called it the good cholesterol, that it should be high. What people didn't realize was, if it's low, it's actually destructive for you. If your HDL is low, it's bad for you. So it's both the good and the bad cholesterol, and obviously your triglycerides, right? So that was important, and we had no idea, and I'm pretty sure most of the cardiologists also don't have this idea. My LDL cholesterol is in, I think, 250s to 260s right now, and my HDL is about 80, and my TGs are low in like 90 or 100 or something like that. I'm pretty sure if any of the cardiologists look at my lipid profile, they would want to start me on statins for sure. My calcium scoring is zero, absolutely zero. And that's a tool that we have now. Obviously, I wasn't there 20, 30, 40 years back when people were talking about statins and stuff. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I have no plaquing, and one of the radiologists commented that I have really strong arteries, uh, and that I can attribute to obviously the carnivore diet and the training that I do. Probably, yeah. So that's one of the myths that we were taught in medical school, and I don't blame the my professors or my doctors, because they were taught the same, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We want to do good, right? So we think we're doing the good thing until it's it's until the information is in front of us, and then we're like, okay, now we have to make a choice to actually look into it or not. And yeah, you're one of these doctors that take the time and take the mental openness, right? To be like, okay, let's see that's an interesting fact, right? Okay, I've been taught all these things, but maybe it's wrong, right? And I was talking about these dietitians there. So there's this guy in I don't want to name, but in a platform where he's very, very, very against the carnivore diet, and it's like and he goes always back to his training. I have the training, I have the diploma, and who are you to question that? And so that's like they always talk on authority and not necessarily on the facts that, hey, well, how about all these people that, like yourself, like myself, that do this and they feel like all their problems are, or most of their health problems are much better. So yeah, I mean, thank you for being a open doctor to an open-minded doctor to these ideas, and you are the living proof of that the diet. If you take care of your diet, you can definitely have an impact on your life. So I guess we're at our last minutes. So what I could ask you maybe to end is, you mentioned this research that you're doing. Is there a way for us to look at it, or is there any documentation on that, or any website we can visit, or participate in any way?
So that's a single centric study going on right now. So it's still work in progress. It's going to go on till the December of 2025. So we'll have thousands and thousands of patients. I mean, we're not posting anything live right now because it'll be given in for publication once we are done. But time to time on my podcast and on my reel, I will definitely be updating people as to what's happening in that research. We don't have a website or anything where we're going to share it. But yeah, once we are done with that, we can always plan to do like a bigger multi-centric study to get in much more data, and that'll be fun.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like a carnivore diet community, some questionnaire that we can give to all the people that I don't know how this could be done, but I guess you know we are an open-minded community and helping each other. So I guess that it will be an easy thing to set up. So yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Absolutely,
All right,
yeah, we'll do
so
something.
Ankur, it was really a pleasure to have you here and for our discussion. And it's been a great conversation, and I enjoyed today's episode. And I would like to invite everybody to follow Ankur Verma, Dr. Ankur Verma, to his Instagram or Facebook. He's mostly on Instagram, if I understood correctly. This is how I found
Mhm.
about you. And I believe you also have a podcast on Spotify, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
called the Desi EM project, DESI, EM for emergency medicine project. So the Desi EM project on Spotify. It's also on Apple and Google Podcasts. So you can get me there. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
Alexandros. It's been a lot of fun chatting up with you tonight.
thank you. And take care. We'll keep in touch.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, man.
Bye
See you, bye.
bye.
See you, man. Bye.